My love for you is immeasurable. My respect for you immense. You're ageless, timeless, lace and fineness, your beauty and elegance.
Good morning, everyone. This is Michele Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. I'm coming to you today from my home in Tehran, and it's beautiful here. It's crisp November day, but absolutely precious for California. So I wanted to let you know that I've been excited about the podcast today for several weeks, because in September I went to the Napa Valley Festival, which, if you're not aware of that, it's becoming the very world famous festival. And it is at that event that I met Abby Mueller and Sharon, both of whom were the featured performers for the evening. And I knew right away that I needed to have them on my podcast. One, because we've never had anyone from Broadway or entertainment industry. And as you know, with Ageless and Timeless, we always try to feature a diversity of people with backgrounds in different areas, and particularly when they've achieved great success, that we always want to know the curiosity question: how did you get to where you are? So welcome, Abby and Sharon. And both of them are in New York today, of course, and that's where they live. So let me start by just giving a little bio on both of these beautiful women. Abby Mueller is actually, her credits are so long, I'm just going to try to simplify it by saying that she's played Lady Jane Seymour in the Broadway show that you may have heard of called Six. And didn't it win an award, Abby?
It did. It won a bunch of awards. I'm not even sure if I can remember all of them, but it's some Tonys and some Drama Desks and some Outer Critics Circle. And
that's what I thought. And then she was also, and everyone will love this, she played Carole King in the Broadway show Beautiful. And we're going to have a little treat today, because we're going to listen to her sing one of our favorite songs called Natural Woman. So just that in a moment, but let me go to Sharon. So Sharon played the piano that evening. Sharon is more like, behind the scenes, she does all these beautiful renditions, and she's like Abby's foil that night. But then when I started looking into her background, I realized she's a talent unto herself. She just takes that background seat for performances like we saw that evening. But we're going to listen today to one of Sharon's renditions that she actually, it's called Hotel Heart. Sharon, just for a moment, what was the story behind Hotel Heart? I know you told us that evening.
Sure. I had a dream one night. My piano teacher passed away when he was very young and I was very young, and I never got the chance to thank him for all of everything that he taught me. And he passed away before I was working professionally. And I had a dream one night where he came and visited me. So then the next morning I woke up and I wrote that song as a thank you to him.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we'll have the treat of hearing a little bit of that. And then I noticed in your bio, it said Lifetime's Dance Moms. Well, I'm not a TV person, so tell us a little bit about that and what your role was in that performance on television.
Sure. I was lucky enough. I had 5 of my original songs placed on the show Dance Moms. Dance Moms was a reality TV show where I think it was a dance studio in Pennsylvania. I actually didn't have a TV at the time that these were being aired, so I never really got to watch the show. I just saw clips, but it was a reality TV show, and young girls would do dances to different songs, and 5 of my songs happened to be chosen. So they danced to them and then aired on the show.
Wow, that's quite an honor. Well, let's just take a moment and listen to Abby, and then we're going to start talking to both of you about your journey to where you are today. So if we can just take a quick moment here, Mark, would you play a little bit of Abby's performance in Beautiful?
You make me feel like a natural woman. Oh,
amazing, Abby. Well, I mean, it's one thing to see it like that on a video, but that evening at the Napa Valley Festival, under the stars and the moonlight and beautiful Napa Valley vineyards and behind you, it was so magical. And the audience was in tears. So I don't know if you saw that, but there wasn't a dry eye in the place when not only sang Carole King, but Adele and well, your spectrum is so broad, and you sing every song as if you close your eyes, particularly with the women, obviously, you would think that you were listening to Carole King or Adele. It's just so real.
Oh,
and,
thanks.
Yeah, so thank you. Well, let's talk a little bit, and then we'll go over to a little bit of Hotel Hearts. Sharon's performance. So let's talk about, and I'll start with you, Abby. What is it that you would say was the most inspiring moment in your life to date that caused you to be the person you are today?
Oh, wow. Just start off with an easy question there, Michele.
I know, we always do that.
Wow, that is a very good question. I'm trying to think of how to even answer that. Well, I will say that I remember. Please, cell phones, please.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's because it's through the computer. I know. It's all like.
That's okay.
You know what? I remember seeing my dad in a show when I was very, very young. He was in a production of the musical 1776, which is about the founding fathers of America. Not something that like young kids are into, but we were pretty well behaved. And I remember going to see that show. And there's only two women in the entire show. It's of course all the founding fathers, and then Abigail Adams, who is John Adams' wife,
right,
and Martha Jefferson. And my dad played John Adams, and so not only were there only two women in the whole show who got to wear these beautiful costumes, but also one of them was named Abigail. So I remember being very enthralled with it. And that's sort of the first theatrical memory that I have that really sparked my interest. And so going on from there, I was always exciting to go to the shows mostly that my parents were in or their friends were in. They're both professional actors in Chicago. So I grew up seeing a lot of theater. And I would say that really sparked my interest in it.
So just taking that one more step. So what challenges did you face to get to where you are today? What obstacles have been in your way, and how have you defeated those obstacles, overcome those obstacles, let's say?
Well, I would say it's honestly still a work in progress. I think in order to do this as a profession, you deal with a lot of, it's basically constantly searching for work. It's constantly interviewing for jobs. And as you could imagine, there is a lot more rejection than there is affirmation. Mm-hmm. So just that in itself is quite a challenge. And I've always been a very sensitive person. So, it doesn't feel good to be rejected. And I think along with the challenge of constantly having to start over, really, because it's not like in a lot of other lines of work and businesses, you sort of climb a ladder and then not always, but you sort of attain a level and then you can stay there or you go up from there. And I think in show business, it's really interesting. There's some of that to an extent, but just because you reach, let's say, Broadway or whatever pinnacle it is, that job is always going to end. And then you always need another job. So there is still that sense of fluctuation. Mm-hmm. And that, I would say, is something I still haven't gotten used to and continues to be a challenge, especially as you get older and sort of, I don't know, for me, you sort of yearn for more security. It's definitely not a secure lifestyle. So that continues to be a challenge, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Sharon?
Well, which part of that question would you like me to?
Well, let's start with the first part, because I don't want to let you off the hook.
No, don't let her off if I'd answer it.
Right, exactly. So let's talk first about inspiration, and then second about obstacles?
Yeah. As far as inspiration, I mean, I'm trying to think as Abby was talking. I don't know if I had like one moment. I just remember falling so deeply in love with the piano when I first started learning it. And then also no one in my family is a musician, but my parents are such music fans. So we always had music playing in the house. And my dad likes to say that, we would take these road trips to South Carolina every summer. And he says that we were brought up on the Church of the Beatles. I know every single Beatles song, ever written, every single word. And, he's very proud of that. So music was such a presence in my house. And I just remember kind of like the comfort that it gave me and the joy that it gave me. So it was kind of an overarching thing and then when I started writing songs, I just thought like, oh my God, like I could be hopefully this to somebody else. I could be that sense of comfort and excitement for somebody else. I did see, in 5th grade, we went to the middle school to see a production of The Music Man. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty blown away by that too. So that if I had to really pinpoint like my love of theater, of musicals, it would be that. But I think my love of music just started so early on.
Mm-hmm. And then what about the obstacles? There
are so many obstacles. I don't know where to start.
I think you're in a world that is. It's like once you get to one level, you start all over again. It's not like, yes, you do have a resume, but you are still having to prove yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of what Abby said. The instability is tough. We both deal with, I don't want to say performance anxiety, but just that, because I wouldn't really call it that, but the balance of remaining emotionally open while being able to hit your marks and perform at such a precise level all the time. That's a struggle for me and for a lot of artists I know. The rejection, sure. I mean, that's another like double-edged sword of you have to keep, exposing yourself emotionally and being open to things, but at the same time, not letting your feelings get hurt all the time, which they do. So, but I would say the instability is tricky.
Well, do you think women are different than men in terms of how they deal with the anxiety and the outcome if it is a rejection?
I would say in my experience, yes. I think that what I have seen just on the musician side, and maybe this is just me and I happen to be a woman, so I can't speak for all women, but I've seen a lot of musicians, make mistakes and like, and they laugh and then it's over with. And for me, I'm, upset by it for 6 months. And I don't know if that's because I don't think that women are really given as many second chances as men. So I think that women, and again, I can only speak for myself, I think that I feel like there is no room for error, which is ridiculous because we're human beings and we're artists. And of course, like there is no such thing as perfection when you're an artist. But I think that, yeah, it is very different. And again, maybe that's just me and how I process, but I am a woman.
How do you feel about that, Abby?
I think that I can't say like blanketly there's difference because I have a lot of male friends who are just as, it hurts your feelings to be rejected. And I know men that are just as sensitive to it as women. I will say, kind of along with what Sharon was saying, I do feel like there are different standards, industry standards for men and women, and behavior that perhaps men can get away with, women are not, and or are labeled things, you know what I'm saying, difficult or diva, in just certain ways of either sticking up for yourself or some, behavior can be perceived as behavior that may be perceived acceptable in males isn't always in females, and that vice versa. So, and I do think that
I was going to say, particularly when it comes to emotion, right? Where
right.
There's a bias and a perception that women are going to be far more emotional about the experience, particularly if it's a negative one. But is is that presented itself? Is there discrimination, do you feel, in that respect for women in entertainment?
I would say, we're in a business where we're required to be emotional, like we're actually asked to access our emotions. So, it can be, again, confusing when so-and-so is seen it as a male perhaps could respond in a way, but a woman who responds in the same way is called hysterical, or, you know what I mean? Like that. That's just sort of like real life too. That's not just in show business. I think we see that a lot, right? Like men can be angry and they're just blowing off steam, or they're sticking up for themselves, and the woman's like, whoa, she's lost it, or she's
like how we never call little boys bossy, we only call little girls bossy.
That's a really good one. Boys are just confident, or just being boys, or just being, again, like asserting themselves. An assertive woman is like, so I feel like, I think that spans all sort of genres. And just for the fact that there's a lot more roles for men than there are for women, period. So men have more opportunity really to get. So I do think there are some perhaps differences in the perceptions and the way things are perceived and allowed.
Mm-hmm. So as you know, the title of my podcast is Ageless and Timeless. And there's a reason that I selected that name. One, because it does embrace the health and wellness, longevity. The other reason is that it just suggests that we can live an eternal life. Of course, we're all going to die, one day, but we can live an eternal life at the level of excellence, being the best version of ourselves. And that creates that eternal potential. It doesn't mean you're always going to be in bliss every day, because there's always new challenges. But so if you look at the longevity side of the Ageless and Timeless podcast theme, how would you say your industry is unique in terms of how you keep yourselves ageless and timeless? Meaning, how do you stay healthy and how do you stay on? Because you always have to be quote unquote on, meaning, if you're having a bad day, and you're sometimes we wake up, we feel tired, or, whatever the reason. So let's take one at a time. Sharon, why don't you start and say, how do you keep yourself on top health-wise?
Sure. I am a really big fan of routine. I think because my career, that doesn't exist. So I have to build one for myself. So every morning I wake up and I meditate for 20 minutes immediately. That's the first thing I do before I look at the phone, before I answer emails, anything. That's like my time to kind of just give my brain a break. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of like yoga, stretching kind of things, because and not just me, a lot of pianists, we have like back and hip stuff from the way that we sit for so long. So I try to balance that out and get into my body. If I have to do, if I'm feeling like garbage and I have to do a show, kind of like tonight, I really try to hydrate. I take a lot of vitamins. I try to eat as clean as I can. And I do a lot of like deep breathing stuff just to get on my breath. Because I think people don't really, even if I'm a pianist, so an instrument that doesn't technically require breath, it actually really does. And I have to breathe with the conductor, with the other musicians, things like that. So just anything that I can do to ground myself as much as possible, because you get in there on the stage, under the stage, wherever, and you're going to feel different. Some days you're going to be nervous, or you're thinking, oh, I have a bad show. I'm having a bad show. And you start to go down the rabbit hole. Everyone's better than me. I don't deserve to be here. So I really try to just anything I can do to keep myself as calm as possible while being alert. Again, it's this contradiction of having to be one thing while simultaneously being the other. But that's what I do. I journal, I read.
It's interesting what you're saying, because just the sitting on the piano bench, having to, kind of be hunched over a little bit, just goes against all the great, attributes of good posture, because it's like when we sit at a computer all day, so you have that going against you. So doing the yoga, I'm sure, helps you. Yes. And so what about you, Abby? What is your health regimen?
Yeah, so I also have a morning routine, which I've found I like tried to do for years, and then finally, I think was successful in establishing one, and that's really helped. Um, I just realized something that I got out of the practice of doing that Sharon mentioned, and it's made a huge difference to the negative, and I need to get back into it, is not looking at the phone. Excuse me.
Right.
I
As
used
soon
to
as you wake
literally
up.
not turn I sleep with my phone on airplane mode, which is a great hack, by the way. And then I would not even turn the dang thing on until like noon. And that helped so much. And I got out of that habit recently, and I've really sensed a difference. So I'm going to try to get back to that. But yeah, I get up right away and I have lemon water, and I do yoga, and then I meditate, and usually have some sort of calming practice. I use a technique called EFT tapping quite a bit. I try to hang out with my cat because she's usually snuggling in this. We hang out in the sunniest room I can in my apartment in the morning to get the vitamin D, and that really, when I don't have time to do that stuff, I really feel it for the rest of the day. And so, for me, I've just really tried to become more aware of the choices I make that set my nervous system up for success for the rest of the day, and those things really help with that. And it can be a challenge because it sometimes takes a long time, and sometimes you have early appointments, and you don't have, you've got to kind of squeeze it in. But I'm proud to have gotten a point where there's like at least a baseline now that I'm like, no, this is a non-negotiable, and I really need to do it for my physical and mental health so that I can do my job, and beyond that, just like, function well as a human being as well as possible.
They say one little trick is to make an appointment with yourself. In other words, these are your commitments, but you make an appointment with yourself. So that time is set aside, just as if you were going to an audition. Yeah. But this is an appointment for you. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you ever follow Oprah Winfrey, but, she does have some amazing, wisdom when it comes to her practices. And a lot of them, of course, are spiritual and mental. And look who she is, and look where she's come from to where she is today. And so, I do think she has much to teach us. And she does say, don't look at your phone. That should be one of your first rules. Don't look. The only reason I look at my phone is to see what time it is in the morning. Right. Just so, because I don't usually have to have an alarm unless I'm traveling. So that's the only reason I open it up in the morning. Then I immediately shut it, and then I go do everything else, and then come back to it once I'm ready to have a cup of tea or something. Mm-hmm. But what about your exercise? Do you have an exercise program that you love?
Well, yeah, like I said, I do yoga, and I do a lot of walking. Mm-hmm. While I was in the show, I was doing quite a bit of dancing. Every night. So that was a lot of exercise. I'm not currently doing that show anymore, so I need to add some more back in, but that was pretty intensive cardio. And it was sort of like balancing, like if I do too much during the day, then am I going to have enough, juice at night, and just sort of figuring out the physical requirements are different really for every show. It was very different for 6 than it was for Beautiful, for example. So it kind of, it morphs and changes. Mm-hmm. Depending on things. And then of course the pandemic happened and everything was different, you know what I mean? So
a lot of indoor exercising at that point. Or if you could get outdoors, in New York you have a weather issue, but here in California that's how I managed to get through it. Because when you're outdoors, you're social distancing. So you can, but walking is a big one. So let's take a moment. Mark, can we listen to Sharon and her beautiful song, Hotel Heart?
I saw you in my dream last night. You had your smile so white. I thought your teeth were the stars. Your eyes, they were like tiny rivers. Well, it gave me the shivers when you looked right up at me. goodbye. We never sat down and cried and watched each other's tears fall out. So I never got a chance to tell you just exactly how well you carved your home in my heart. You can stay here a while in this hotel heart. People come and people go every day. I'll never let it get cold or dark or crowded. I'll never give your spot away. I bet you thought I'd be much smaller. Well, I've gotten much taller. My legs are like trees in the ground. My branches are my tiny fingers. Well, they've gotten much bigger. They reach out for so much more. Say you'll stay here a while in this hotel heart. People come and people go all the time. I'll never let it get cold or dark or crowded. I'll never turn out the light.
That is, well, like I said, there wasn't a dry eye in the place that evening. And you know, Sharon, you don't get credit for your voice, but you have a beautiful voice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I always joke, I never want to sing after Abby, but
Well, I would say that she's trained for just that, and you've trained for the piano, but you have a naturally beautiful voice. So
thank you. Thank you.
So a few other questions that I have for you. What do you do when an audience doesn't like you? How do you handle, or have you had that ever happen? Maybe that's an unfair question, but have you ever had the time when you got a bad review with the critics, or the audience didn't give you, they just were like a funky audience, and they just didn't give you the reassurance that you needed? There probably are some of those out there, but how do you deal with that when you don't feel like you're getting the accolades that you deserve?
Well, I think, in the instance where, I would say there's a difference between like, I feel like the audience isn't really responding tonight, and like getting a bad review. Those are
right? Two very different.
Yeah, because, that, first of all, and that's why I really try not to read reviews, because again, it's one person's experience, and or you can never know where they're coming from. It's not necessarily a great litmus test for like your own self-worth, depending on who the critic. I mean, some of these critics are quite powerful, right? But it's always one person's opinion. Now, I'm happy to say, I don't think I've ever had where they were like, get her out of here, get the hook. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure you haven't.
Maybe so. And again, if they have, I don't really want to know, because that would be devastating. But in general, I found, unless you're, I guess, in general, I've been mostly well cast, and the people who were casting me knew what they were doing, and I know what I'm doing enough that, I'm trying to serve the piece. I think if you get too in sort of like, do they love me? Did they do, this, and it gets too much about you, that's always kind of a clue to me that like I'm getting too in my head. I'm like, this is not about me. I'm serving a piece. Am I doing my job for the whole? Now granted, something like a solo show, that's a little bit of a different story, but, in general, and audiences always vary. Some laugh more, some don't. But I've really found that, I have worked with people that say stuff like, oh God, this audience today, they stink, or they hate us, or this. And I'm like, you really can't, it's not always a good barometer, because I've had very quiet audiences that people will come up to me afterward and they're like, thank you, that's the most transformative experience I've ever had. So everyone processes things differently. And I think what I always try to do is, again, reconnect to like the story, what am I saying, and serving the piece. And that helps get me out of more of the spinning of like putting all the weight on myself or my performance, or, if I'm.
And you know what, too, Abby, you're the two big performances that we talked about today, Six and Lady Jane Seymour, and then of course Carole King, both of them, you have to be in the character. So like what you just said is it's not about you. It's about you you're in a way, you're an actress and a vocalist, because you're really trying to portray that person. Like I said, when you close your eyes with Carole King, you think you're listening to Carole King. So that's really quite a huge accomplishment to be able to do that. But also just the visuals, the way she performed. I'm sure you studied a lot of her before you played, took that role, right? Studied how she, all her nuances. So what about you, Sharon? It's a little different for you because, but still, I think you must have moments where you wonder, does the audience really, are they responding to me and to what I'm playing?
Yeah. And I think that's where it comes back again to the routine. And like, you always have to bring it back to your preparation, your craft, your skill, your technique. I think it's really not so much for, as musicians, like, oh, is the audience not loving it? But more of like, we're not playing as best as we can, or I'm having an off night or something like that. And again, it's like, you have to just keep your eye on the prize and bring it back to all of the preparation you've done, because it's not about, like Abby said, it's not about pleasing. I mean, it is. We want everyone to love us. Of course, we're in show business, but like, it's not really.
You want to do your job the best you can.
When you're there doing your job, you have to just have that laser focus, and you can't. That's a distraction of the audience. The audience's personal experience. Even if it's amazing, you're not present in what you're doing if you're worrying about the experience that they're having.
Yep, I agree.
So let's move to the present. We've been talking somewhat philosophically about all the characteristics that of a good attitude and a good mental attitude, but a good physical preparation as well. So, but what are you both doing now? What's your current challenge? Abby, what are you up to these days?
So I have got like a lot of irons in the fire, but as I said, I recently ended my run in a Broadway show. So it has been a really good time to kind of assess while there's always things happening. You're always auditioning. A little bit of a pause, but it's funny. There's like still so much going on, and it was such a great experience for me, and I think for Sharon, I don't want to speak for you, but to do that event in Napa Valley, that was one of the first solo shows that I've ever done, which is actually really scary. And it was like such a great experience and really opened up my, it was one of those things I kept putting off because it seemed too spooky. So that was a big step to do that. And that's really opened up a lot of opportunities as well. So I'm really in a space now where I'm trying to kind of get back to stuff we've talked about, like making sure things are really in alignment with my health, with my mental health, and seeing what the next step is going to be. It's always helpful to kind of get as grounded as possible so you can make a choice. I think in show business, a lot of times we feel like, oh, I just have to take the next thing, or, like we don't have a lot of agency and choice because we feel like we have to take every job that comes our way. And I think Sharon and I have both found that you're always grateful, but there has to be some selectiveness as well. Otherwise, to make sure, again, just as in any other genre, right, that you're making aligned decisions.
Mm-hmm. Do you both have to have agents in order to get new gigs?
So it depends, honestly. There's different kinds of agents. There's managers. There's, concert agents are different than theatrical agents, and TV film is like a different. So I think the answer is you don't have to.
No, but I mean, is it the best decision for you to have an agency representing you?
For me right now, what's that?
Yeah, no, it totally depends. We both have had agents and managers and not had them. And, again, like nothing in this career path is really linear. So I think it all comes down to like the moment, where you are, what you need, what you feel you need, if you can represent yourself. Sometimes you are in a position where you're like, I don't need someone to do this job for me, or I'd rather just, handle it myself, and sometimes you do want somebody helping you.
Yeah.
What are you up to these days, Sharon?
So I'm working on quite a few projects as a composer lyricist. I have 4 productions coming up in 2023.
Wow.
The first one is a children's musical called Maybe. Will be at Stages Theater Company in Minneapolis in January. That's based on this book by Kobe Yamato, it's so beautiful. And it's all about, the unlimited potential in all of us. Then I
fits beautifully with my
yes, exactly. Yes.
Right.
Then I have a piece called In Vain that's going to happen at Missouri State with the musical theater department in April. And then in end of April and early May, an adaptation of The Tempest, also for kids, will be happening here at 92nd Street Y.
Oh, wow.
And then I have another one, but it hasn't been announced yet. So.
Okay, so
I'm busy.
She busy.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the past and coming to the present. Let's talk about the future. So what if you could have everything you ever wanted, your dreams come true, what would that look like? Abby, go ahead. I always put you on the spot. I'm sorry. I could go to Sharon if you prefer.
Oh no. Well, being able to walk outside year round, that sounds pretty good when you're talking about living in California. I don't know if that means I need to move to California, but, I definitely think of those sort of things, like those really big lifestyle markers.
Coming to the Napa Valley probably and going down to Woodside must have spoiled you a little bit, right?
Oh my gosh,
it really
move out
here, but you couldn't move here, could you? Because your careers are there.
But, this is these are the questions, Michele. To be determined, right? Yes, technically, if you want to be on Broadway, you're probably going to have to be in New York, but I don't know. I think it might be possible to live maybe a couple places or split time. That really appeals to me, honestly, because I love being out west. I love the mountains. I love the desert, and we don't have any of that here. I also love Broadway, and I love New York. So,
right.
I would say the future looks like a combination platter of those things.
Well, of course, you have to create that. So, it's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to set intentions and then realize your goals, which is really through first it's a commitment and then the action. The action is really the key, right?
Yeah.
So, and what about you, Sharon? How do you feel about your future?
If all of my dreams came true.
Well, even if just one, I mean, we don't want to be greedy, right? But yet that doesn't mean we don't think big.
My dream has always been to be a full-time composer. So I've worked a lot as a pianist over my last 16 years in New York, and I think nobody believes me when I say this, but I think that chapter is coming to an end. Never say never, but I think, I am moving into composing as a living full time. So that is my ultimate dream. So I'm saying it out loud so we can manifest it and it can continue to move that way.
Right, right. Well, just so you know, as far as places to live, that I was born in Boston. I don't know if I told you this, but I'm an East Coast girl. But then when we grew up, my husband and I met when we were 14, and we grew up, went to college, and we were, talking about getting married and all that. And then we made a deal at that time. And don't ask me why. I just knew I was supposed to come from the East. I was living in New York City with him at the time, and we were supposed to come West. What is that makes you know that? It was just an intuition. It was something inside. And so we made a deal that he would work. He was working on Wall Street as an attorney, and I was working and getting my master's degree. And we both said, we're going to move to California in 2 years. So setting that intention, I think, is what made the huge difference. And I'll never forget driving across the George Washington Bridge, looking in the rearview mirror and saying, I'll never see this again, even though, I have tons of family back east and all that. Of course, that was unrealistic, but it was just realizing a dream. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big proponent of not only setting an intention, but writing it down. And then when that 2 years came, we looked at each other and said, the 2 years is coming. And we did make an agreement that we were going to do this. So we made it happen. We both had to quit our jobs. Our family was really upset because we were the only ones that it was like you were betraying them, leaving the family nest. And interestingly enough, once we got to California, slowly but surely, our family moved out here. Many of them, his parents, his, on and on. I mean, so all of a sudden they'd show up at our doorstep. So that was a lot of years ago, but I've never looked back. But interestingly enough, I spent every other week in New York after I got to California because the company that I joined wanted me to come back because their headquarters was there. So it just shows you the ironies of life that you never know what's going to happen. But here I thought I would never come back to that George Washington Bridge, but I was back there every other week.
Yeah, right. Never set other plans.
Other plans. So I think the key to life is to always be flexible and take what comes and analyze it and judge it for its merits and say, I'm not going to be so stuck in, not be immobile because it's going against what you thought you were going to do. But, and then ironically, as it turned out, because I became a real estate developer, I ended up living Hawaii, Aspen, Mexico, San Francisco, LA, Las Vegas, all of them, where my projects were. But just to show you that I would have never have set that intention, just like when I'm asking you. So all I'm telling you is just be prepared. Because you never know where the road is going to take you. And the key thing is to always, look at everything as it's meant to be. Life is a series of, happy accidents. And if you look at it that way, I think you end up making really wise choices. But if you look at them as obstacles, oh my gosh, I never expected I would be here, then you're not flowing. A key is to well, you both do yoga, so you know what it means to be in the flow, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, I want to wrap up, but I also want to just have our viewers know that we're in some very special company today. So, so just to summarize, I'm going to start again with you, Abby, if you don't mind. But if you would just say in a nutshell, just one paragraph, who are you in your most unique sense, and why is it that you are where you are today? In other words, try to give us a little insight into this person that's sitting here, rather than the Broadway performer who just happened to play Carole King and Lady Jane Seymour as two of your most prominent. But just give us a little bit of insight into who you are uniquely as a human being, and what some of those attributes are that you think have brought you to the place you are today.
Gosh, Michele,
I know I asked
she's asking us cold.
They're such huge questions.
They're huge. No preparation. Oh gosh. Well, I would say.
I think that's a good thing that you just said that, because a lot of people think, oh, you have, we did have a little conversation beforehand, so-called dress rehearsal, but we never talked. I never tell everybody what I'm going to ask because I've always let it flow. So
I'm going to ask people that now. That I mean, give me a paragraph of why you're your unique self. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Look, well, my name is Abby Mueller. I am a very sensitive, empathetic soul. I soak up everything that's around me. And have become more aware of that, and have learned how to view it as a gift and not a liability. But I also have to practice to make sure that I can keep myself healthy. And I am continually trying to grow and learn, and that's sort of how I look at the world around me. And I love birds and nature, and I love singing. And so the other stuff is just sort of
Well, Abby, I'm not surprised at what you just said, because your sensitivity comes across in your performances. You really, and not only that, but your gratitude. You are extremely kind and gentle, and really a beautiful soul. I just want the audience, if they've already not already noticed that is part of what makes you so unique. So that's an outsider's observation, but you did touch on that. What's your birth sign?
Aquarius.
Aquarius. Oh, that's interesting.
It is, but I'm Cancer rising.
That makes sense because you're a water sign, because you're creative and you're very sensitive, and yeah, that makes sense. You know, they say your rising sign is the personality, is what you show
present.
To the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And your moon is your emotional side. So just a little bit of astrology. Yep. So Sharon, we have like 3 minutes left. So if you can just give us your
pressure.
Gosh, I know. I was trying to think of what I was going to say during Abby's beautiful answer, and I still don't know. My name is Sharon Kenny. I am also very empathetic and very sensitive emotionally. I would say that I'm also pretty neurotic and detail obsessed, and as many musicians are, because we need to be. I have, I fell in love with music at a very early age, and it has colored my entire life in this beautiful and complicated way. I'm also proudly from New Jersey, and I'm one of 3 sisters, and I love my family and my friends and my dog. And that's
either one, just a curious question, are either one of you married?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, so there we go. Well, let's let our audience know that there are 2 beautiful, eligible women in Manhattan. So
thank you, Michele. Yes.
Incredible talents. Okay, well, I want to thank you both for joining us today. And
thank you.
This has been a real treat. One, because I'm passionate about music. So for me, this is like a journey into your hearts and your souls and your ambitions. And it just vicariously, it's just a joyous experience to try to understand better who you are and why you have succeeded in the way that you have. So thank you very much. And I just want to say to our audience that if you want to visit with either Sharon or Abby, they can tell you their contact information right now, if you would, so that people can view you if they can't get to Broadway. So can you do that first, Abby?
Yes, probably the best way is my Instagram. My handle is ABCMUELL. So look me up there on social media.
Okay, say that again, Abby.
ABCMUELL.
Okay, MUELL.
Yep.
ABCMUELL. And how about you, Sharon?
My Instagram handle is just Sharon Kenny Music, SharonKenny Music. Mm-hmm. And then I have a website, sharon-kenny.com, and all of my songs are available on Apple Music, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, wherever music is sold.
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, thank you so much again, and have a beautiful week, and let me know when you're doing any new things. And also, if you put this podcast on your social media, people will possibly contact me if they want to and they will off of my website and my YouTube channel. So you'll be seeing yourself. Yeah.
Yes, okay, we're doing
again.
Great. Thank you so much.
My YouTube channel is Ageless and Timeless. Just Ageless and Timeless with Michele Hughes, and Michele is Michele. Okay. So, all right.
Thank you.
Bye, Michele.
Okay. Bye.
My love for you is immeasurable. My respect for you immense. You're ageless, timeless, lace and fineness, your beauty and